This is what happens when the people who shaped you walk back into your life. Not the ones who showed up after the fame, not the ones who arrived once the money was there and the name meant something. Starting with the moment Steve Harvey heard two words that sent him straight back to a Cleveland classroom in 1966. "Hey Steve, it's me, Butch." And his whole face broke open into something between shock and pure joy. The composure was gone in an instant. He knew exactly who it was before he even fully processed it. Best childhood friend from 3rd and 4th grade. The kid who sat next to him in Miss Adams' class at a Cleveland school around 1966. The one who knew him before any of the hustle, before the stand-up, before the television, before any of it. They hadn't drifted apart the way some childhood friends do. They had stayed close for decades, close enough that in 1983, Butch asked Harvey to be the best man at his wedding. Harvey said yes. Then he promptly turned what should have been a quiet pre-wedding gathering into a 2-day bachelor party that made Butch legitimately late to his own ceremony. Sitting there on television, Butch recounted it with the grin of a man who had then the show put their old 1966 class photo up on screen. 2 little boys in a photograph taken before either of them had any idea what their lives would become. The person you used to be is still in there. And sometimes it only takes 2 words to bring him all the way back to the surface. But not every reunion comes in the form of a face suddenly appearing in a crowd. Sometimes it comes through a screen, 35 years after the last time you shared a shift. In November 2020, Matthew McConaughey appeared on Red Table Talk alongside his mother, Kay, to discuss his memoir, Green Lights, a book he'd spent years writing about the moments and people who had quietly redirected the course of his life. The conversation was moving along naturally until Jada Pinkett Smith turned to him with a particular kind of calm that hosts get when they know something the guest doesn't.
In your book, you wrote about a woman named Tammy who opened your eyes to different cultures. We have a little surprise for you. You haven't seen her in 35 years, but we tracked her down, and she has a little something to say to you.
Tammy!
McConaughey leaned forward immediately, eyes bright, that easy charm replaced by something more unguarded. "Tammy, you're so beautiful. Look at you doing good too," he said, grinning like a man who had just recovered something he didn't realize he'd been missing. In Green Lights, he describes Tammy as the black and beautiful as midnight rock star waitress at Catfish Station, an all-black jazz bar in Austin where a young college student McConaughey used to tend bar.
You got me acting all up. You know, we're supposed to be grown and adult, like, you know.
Oh, look at you.
Taking it back to, 30 years ago. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Look at you. You're doing good too. There we are.
Wow.
There we are.
Look at you guys.
She's running the floor at the Catfish Station. And the clientele's about, what, 95% male?
Something like that.
Well, when this guy comes in to say, "I want to be a waiter here," Tammy's like, Well, she teaches me the ropes. She also lets me know these are my key tables. Don't even think about serving them.
That's right.
He credits her in the book with opening his eyes to different cultures at exactly the age when that kind of exposure has the power to reshape you. She wasn't a teacher in a classroom. She wasn't a mentor in any formal sense. She was a woman who showed up for her shift and, without ever trying to, gave a young man from Texas a window into a world he'd never seen before.
Mind you, all that clientele, they wanted Tammy serving them, all right? And so you beat me in tips every single night. One time I made you sweat, though. You got 76 and I got $72.
Yeah.
Okay, still undefeated.
I love that.
Yes, and you had a little fan club too, though. You know that, right?
It took a couple years to work up my fan club, but
No,
you ran the floor.
Well, you had the butt going on. You had the butt thing going on.
He never forgot her name. He put her in a book read by millions of people. And when she finally appeared on that screen after 35 years, the warmth between them was immediate and undeniable. 2 people who had occupied the same space in time and left marks on each other that neither of them had entirely understood until that moment. Yet some reunions don't come through a screen or a surprise guest walking into a studio. Some of them arrive in the middle of an ordinary interview in the form of a video message that stops you completely cold. Lin-Manuel Miranda was sitting in a CBS This Morning interview in January 2019, talking about Hamilton's run in Puerto Rico when the host told him they had something to show him. They played a recorded video message from Dr. Rembert Herbert. his 8th grade English teacher. Miranda's eyes went wide. Then, slowly, they filled.
So, Lynn, this is your old English teacher, Dr. Herbert here. I'm sure you didn't imagine when you were in the 8th grade and set some of the chosen to music that it would lead you where you are today.
Dr. Herbert's message was measured and precise, the kind of thing a teacher says when they've had a long time to think about what they would say if they ever got the chance. Lynn, this is your old English teacher, Dr. Herbert here. I'm sure you didn't imagine when you were in the 8th grade and set some of the chosen to music that it would lead you where you are today. Congratulations.
Congratulations. I've heard a lot about what you're doing in Puerto Rico, and I wish you well in those endeavors and continued great success down there.
The backstory is the whole point. In 8th grade English, Miranda had been assigned a standard homework project. Instead of doing it the way every other student did, he wrote a full musical adaptation of The Chosen. Another teacher might have handed it back with a failing grade and a lecture about following instructions. Dr. Herbert looked at it and told him he could be good at this, and then directed him toward the student-written theater club at his high school, the one that would eventually lead him everywhere else.
Yeah, Dr. Herbert's the reason I'm sitting here talking to you. He was the, I wrote a musical instead of doing my homework for his class in 8th grade. And he said, you could be good at this, and you should stop hibernating in my class, and you should be doing this, because we had a student-written theater club at my high school, and Rembert's the one who nudged me in that direction, and he sort of changed my life forever with that.
Miranda wiped his eyes and worked to get the words out. Dr. Herbert's the reason I'm sitting here talking to you. He said, you could be good at this, and you should stop hibernating in my class, and you should be doing this. He sort of changed my life forever with that. One conversation, one teacher who recognized something in a kid that the kid hadn't yet recognized in himself, and who cared enough to say it out loud instead of just marking it down in a grade book and moving on. That's the whole story. And yet it leads, in a straight, unbroken line, to one of the most celebrated musicals in the history of Broadway. And sometimes the recognition runs in both directions. When the person you quietly honored finally finds out what you did for them in return. Quinta Brunson had been carrying a name around in her head for years before Abbott Elementary became a cultural phenomenon. When she created the show, she named the fictional school after her real 6th grade teacher at a Philadelphia public school, Ms. Joyce Abbott, the woman who had been patient with her, who had believed in her, who had made a 12-year-old girl feel like her voice mattered in a room. She added Willard to the school's name as a separate nod to Will Smith's real first name. The entire premise of the show, a group of dedicated teachers pouring themselves into an underfunded school because they love the kids in front of them, grew, at least in part, from the memory of one real teacher who had done exactly that.
So the school, Abbott Elementary, is, we know, named after one of your real teachers, Ms. Abbott.
Yes.
From what grade?
From 6th grade.
From 6th grade.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw Ms. Abbott?
So the last time I saw Miss Abbott was probably 6th grade.
6th grade.
Yeah, it's probably 6th grade, but I got to talk to her recently.
Then, in February 2022, Brunson appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live to talk about the show's early success and the real story behind the name. Midway through the conversation, Jimmy announced a video call. Ms. Joyce Abbott appeared on the screen, live from home, with 30 years of teaching behind her and no idea she was about to be thanked on national television. Brunson's jaw dropped. She covered her face with both hands. She started crying and giggling at the same time, the way you do when joy arrives faster than you can organize it into a single emotion.
Well, let's talk to her again, because we happen to have her on. Wow. Ms. Abbott.
Hi, Jimmy! Hi, Miss Abbott! No, I'm crying.
Ms. Abbott.
Miss Abbott.
How did you find...
Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you!
The last time I saw Ms. Abbott was probably 6th grade, she managed, her voice barely holding together. Ms. Abbott looked back at her with the quiet pride of someone who had waited a very long time to see how the story turned out. I'm so proud of you. Quinta was an awesome student, very driven. She grew out of her shell. She was really our class spokesperson. Then Jimmy added one more layer to the moment. Ms. Abbott was nearing 30 years in the classroom and getting close to retirement. so he gifted her an all-expenses-paid, first-class 5-day vacation for 2. Brunson screamed, "Oh my God, Ms. Abbott," and completely dissolved.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott. Oh, I think she meant you.
Damn it, Jimmy, no!
How did you find out that the show was named after you?
Oh, no.
Well, actually, it was confirmed one night when I was watching 6 ABC News, and they were talking about the Abbott Elementary show shortly after the pilot, and the newscaster said, "Miss Abbott, if you're watching, Quinta would like to reconnect with you." I was like, oh my God!
The teacher who had spent 3 decades making other people feel seen was for once the one being seen. It was a long time coming.
Wow.
So just very honored.
Did you
I
know,
was just so
did you
excited.
ever imagine back when she was a 6th grade student that Quinta would one day write a show and name it after you? Oh, there you guys are together.
Damn it.
What kind of kid was she?
Quinta was an awesome student. When she came into my class, she was really shy.
I heard you were about to retire,
Not me
Ms.
on
Abbott.
this thing crying, Jimmy.
I'm really excited to retire, Jimmy. Yes, I've done close to 30 years, and it's about time for me to retire.
But of all these reunions, there is one that carries a weight that is almost impossible to put into words. Oprah Winfrey was taping a teacher's appreciation episode of her show in 1989 when she began talking about her 4th grade teacher at Wharton Elementary School in Nashville. She described running home on the very first day of school to tell her father that she had the best teacher anybody could ever have.
And there was always one teacher who stuck out as your favorite, be it the teacher who made you work the hardest, the one who gave you all the breaks, or maybe the one who just brought out the best in you. Today on The Oprah Winfrey Show, we're going to be reuniting people with their favorite teacher, some who have not seen each other for 10, 20, and even 30 years. But first, I'd like to tell you about my favorite teacher.
Then Oprah glanced down at the teleprompter. It read, "Welcome, Mary Duncan." She stopped. The realization moved across her face in real time.
When I was in the 4th grade, I ran home the first day of the 4th grade to tell my dad that I had the best teacher anybody could ever have. Her name was Mrs. Duncan. And during the 4th grade, I wanted to be a 4th grade teacher because of Mrs. Duncan. And I haven't seen Mrs. Duncan since then, and Mrs. Duncan is here today. Mary Duncan?
Mrs. Duncan had a name. Her name is Mary. She rushed across the stage and wrapped her arms around the woman she hadn't seen since around 1970, nearly 20 years, sobbing with a kind of joy that had nowhere left to go but out. The audience stood. People in the crowd were crying alongside her, because there are certain kinds of gratitude that are so honest and so overdue that they pull something loose in everyone who witnesses them.
Mrs. Duncan! Mrs. Duncan!
Through her tears, Oprah told her, "I wanted to be a 4th grade teacher because of Mrs. Duncan. I would not be where I am if it weren't for you." And Mrs. Duncan did what teachers do. She stood there quietly, steadily, and let her former student feel everything she needed to feel. These moments remind us that fame doesn't erase where you came from. The teachers who saw something in you before you saw it in yourself. The childhood friends who knew you when you were nobody. The strangers who became family simply by showing up with patience and kindness at exactly the right moment. They all still matter. They always did.